Hi everyone and welcome to another Spend Synergy training. This one is all about supplier relationship management and equally relationship management within the organisation. Creating value through supplier relationship management. Let's get into it. So, the goal of this training. The goal of this training is to create strategic awareness of how you can build and leverage relationships for tangible benefit within your organisation or business. So let's define it. Effective supplier relationship management is critical for ensuring smooth operations, controlling costs, and maintaining quality in any business. It also offers us an opportunity to leverage value and create strategic advantage by building more than just transactional relationships. It means that the people we work with, from a supplier and customer perspective, are creating value just outside of the emails they're sending, the parts they're buying, through investing in relationships. For each slide on this course, please note down how the points are relevant, could be used, or benefit your organisation now. Think about different types of relationships, both in our personal and professional lives. Think about relationships you have with the colleagues you like the most, the colleagues that you have the best working relationships with, and understand them a little bit in more detail. If someone you have a relationship with, asks you for a favour in work, you're more likely to do it. Equally speaking, if that person asks you for a favour and you like them, you're more likely to help them out and go above and beyond. The people we have negative relationships with, we often invest our littlest efforts in terms of helping and working with. So there's something to think about when we're looking about our suppliers and thinking about suppliers. Ultimately, regardless of where you are in an organisation, everyone's jobs revolve around working with someone else who's in a job, but is still a person. And if we remember to think about them as people and address their problems and their value drivers, we can get so much more out of the relationship, not only for the business, but also for yourself. It can make your job so much easier and you better at your job, which always looks good. Supplier relationships are in fact a strategic asset. There's something to be invested in to create value out of. I know in the position you might be in as a buyer or an expediter running your order books, you might not feel like that's the case. But I can guarantee if you was to think about some of the suppliers you work with, there's some of them that you like more than others. There's some of them that offer the business more value back. You probably know about their kids, you might know what they've done last weekend, potentially what they're doing this weekend. You have these pre-existing relationships, and this means that when they see your name come up on an email, on a meeting request, on a message, whatever it may be, they're more likely to speak to you because you have that interpersonal relationship. So we can create value through relationship management in the most foundational way. Supplier relationships are more than just transactional. They're strategic assets that can offer competitive advantages such as better terms, improved quality, and reliability. The relationship simply isn't just between you and the person you work with at your supplier. It can equally be between the companies themselves. The relationship is how much are they working together? How much as a customer do we spend with our supplier? How important are we to them? Let's understand them, understand their perspective of us. This can lead to better terms because we might have better terms of pricing. Potentially, we can spend more with them if we are able to improve our terms. We can consolidate more spend with them. Improve quality. It could be as simple as this. If we understand and they understand that we are going to be working with them long term, they might be able to offer potential improved quality at the same costs and prices that we're currently spending now. And equally, reliability. A stronger relationship offers more reliable service. Think about your own relationships at work, at home, or with colleagues. People you like, as an example. I guarantee there's a set of your suppliers that you prefer to work with more so than others. And why is that the case? If there's someone you like, someone you enjoy working with, speaking to, talking to, those people are more likely to help you out as well because you've got that positive relationship. Remember, if we can build these relationships, we have opportunities to have improved service, pricing, support, and even just simply effort. If someone likes you as a person, they're more likely to put a little bit more effort into the requests that you send them and what you need. What about the people you don't like? Why don't you like them? Why don't they like you? Why is there not much of a relationship there? And is your job as a buyer potentially to work on those most negative relationships? Now, it's important to understand from a strategic perspective, let's try and put our supplier relationship management efforts into the suppliers that potentially yield us the most return on investment. Thus, though they are the critical suppliers, they give us the goods that we need as a business to do what we do for our customers, but they're also the suppliers we spend the most money with. Focus on those first. If we've not got a great relationship with someone we spend a lot of money with, we need to be asking why. Why, and two more whys. So, how can we start to bridge the gap and develop these relationships and get this value? Invest in supply development. We can collaborate with suppliers to improve their capabilities, which will benefit both parties. If we've worked with someone long term and we know there's a potential problem they keep having in servicing our need, can we help them with that problem? Can they quite literally just be sharing some information that we're definitely going to be using X, Y, and Z materials over the next 12 months that allows them to buy in greater quantities? Could it be co-invest in a bit of equipment? They might be a small supplier. We might have a very strong cash flow. We might offer a cost saving to our parts with them and reduce pricing, but in return we give them a piece of equipment that might allow them to do their job faster for us and more efficient. Build mutual trust. Establish long-term relationships based on trust and shared goals. Ensure that with our key suppliers we're constantly communicating what we are doing as a business, what are we aligned to, and understanding them. What do they want? Where are they moving as a business? Is there a future vision as a business providing the service, need, product or material that is going to serve you long term? And if they aren't, you might be best placed growing that business with another supplier or doubling down with them. They might be moving in the direction you're in, and understanding that is a fantastic thing for building confidence between both parties. Maintain regular communication. We're in a world where communication has never been so easy to keep up at a high level, but that doesn't mean we should only focus on one form. Keep communication channels open to quickly address issues and opportunities. With our key suppliers, we want to be seeing them in person as often as possible too. If possible, based on your job role and availability, seeing people face to face develops a relationship that cannot be at all challenged by any other form of communication. But if, of course, we can't meet the person face to face, Zoom calls and video calls offer a regular opportunity to see people's faces and talk to them on a regular basis. So the impact of strong supplier relationships. Strong relationships lead to better pricing, higher quality, and greater supply chain flexibility. They also make your job easier. Achieving all these things mean your job becomes a lot easier when someone communicates faster with you, gives you better information, and can help you work on any problems you have from your business and your specific job in servicing the business you work for. It makes your life easier, and it's exactly why it's worth investing and learning more about. So we use some simple ways of building relationships with suppliers. Consistent performance reviews. Regularly assess supplier performance to ensure they meet your standards. The contracts you may have in place, the KPIs you might be using to measure their performance for you, the pricing they're giving you, and the quality. Ensure all these things are pre-agreed and set out to measure against with your metrics. When we have these consistent performance reviews, we can see how suppliers are doing month on month, and we can work with them on our relationships to improve these things and understand how we can improve them as well. It's about working together to achieve the mutual goal of which is benefit in your organisation. Collaborative problem solving. Work with suppliers to resolve issues rather than assigning blame, fostering a cooperative environment. They might have the answers to your problems. There might be something you're struggling with in an organisation. It could be the design of a part that they have key expertise in offering. We could be using this material instead, which makes it easier or cheaper. You could be doing this with the product instead, which makes it easier to manufacture, which could be cheaper, or improve the life of the product. There's all these things that the value they have in the core competency they deliver to you, that if you work with them on the problems you are facing, it makes them feel more involved. It improves their trust in you, but also their ability to provide additional value simply outside of a physical product. It's important to think about this, especially with those key suppliers. Support and loyalty. Stand by your suppliers during challenges, which builds loyalty and strengthens the relationship. Now, this is only reserved for very key suppliers that may be supplying you with a good product or service is very niche and you only can use them. This might be due to geographic reasons, it could be due to skill-based reasons, it could be the customer has told you have to use a certain supplier. So building as much support and loyalty with that supplier is important. It might be they have struggled, they may have had a problem, it could be a disaster in the business, it could be some weather issue, it could be a supply chain critical issue outside of their control. But if we can support them and solve that problem with them, the long-term trust that that business then has in you can yield you service and performance far above what anyone would pay simply if it was just a transactional relationship. Bring it back into your personal life. The people that you support the most and the people you are most loyal to often return that favour to you, and you get elements and positives and benefits back from that relationship simply outside of just a transactional requirement. Quarterly business reviews, or QBRs. Meeting up with your key suppliers on a regular basis to review performance, communicate and talk about problems, opportunities and your shared vision. As I said in the previous slide, seeing people face to face and building that true physical relationship is completely unchallenged in terms of the benefit that they can create. Now, this is not always something that you can have time for or investment for. So reserve this for your key suppliers and the ones that you want to get the most value out of. But it's something to try and do as often as possible. Buyer supplier days. Now, this is something many businesses don't do. But once a year, if your business has a diverse enough supply base, and it can be facilitated, running a buyer supplier day where you bring all key suppliers together with your buying team or whatever key stakeholders that are using that supplier supplied internal sort of service or product into one day. It could be a couple of hours. It's having maybe 10 or 15, maybe 2 or 3 key suppliers in one environment where we do some presentations showing the vision of the company, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, and how all these key suppliers are feeding into that. It allows your suppliers to talk to each other and see if there's common things that we could be doing better as an organisation to work with them. But equally, it allows your suppliers to learn from each other and network and build relationships that way. It's surprising how much value you can have by building this close relationship, especially if you're an organisation that has the same forecastable requirements year on year. Building these relationships and getting into bed with these suppliers will only bring you more value back as an organisation. So by improving relationships and using some of the methods we've briefly discussed, we start to understand who our key suppliers and who our key relationships are to manage. Leveraging supplier relationships can result in better pricing, consistent quality and reduced risks. By working together and by understanding each other in greater detail, we can offer some potential opportunities in regards to our relationship. Things like volume consolidation. We could be combining orders across the organisation to negotiate better prices. We could be putting more business to these key suppliers who want the business, and we've realised through our relationship building that they can service those needs for us, and they're willing to offer us better, more competitive pricing than perhaps where it is currently placed. Longer term contracts. By building relationships and understanding each other's business needs in more detail, we can secure favourable terms and ensure supply chain continuity by entering into long-term agreements with these key suppliers. Joint innovation. These improved relationships allow us to work together, and often they can provide value and expertise outside of our organisation, but that could directly impact and benefit the organisation of things we're purchasing and trying to achieve. They may have key engineering insights or service insights that benefit us as a business and also benefit our value we're offering that we extend to our customers. Improved service and effort. Very simple. Suppliers who like your business and like dealing with you will ultimately trust you and give you that extra 5% all the time. They're going to be the people that respond to your emails as soon as they see your name pop up in the inbox and resolves that problem sooner. It might be when you have a big problem regarding lead time or something needs to change. They're going to be the supplier that picks up the phone and wants to bend over backwards for you. It's super simple, but this is the key benefit to be aware of all the time. Being polite and happy and just simply nice with people can put you above and beyond the rest of their customers and offer you these kind of unrealized and measurable benefits that will make your day-to-day job easier but more effective for the organization as a whole. So now we've discussed a lot about supplier relationship management and the benefits of it, but let's apply some of these relationship building methodologies to internal relationships, especially within procurement and supply chain. Now remember, effective procurement and supply chain management requires strong collaborative relationships between departments like finance, operations and maybe even R&D. Reason being is we are the centerfold department that will manage any requisitions or requirements for goods and services. These goods and services will typically be requested by these sort of departments, whether it's a production department requiring new parts for goods, whether it's your IT department requiring new software, whether it's simply the cleaner who needs new mop buckets and new resources to clean. Developing key relationships with especially the category owners that drive most of your costs is incredibly important. Now, a fantastic way of measuring these key stakeholders internally is developing a stakeholder matrix or map like we see on the right hand side of the screen. Now, it's the interest of the stakeholder in terms of what interest they are to you and what interest they have in what you are trying to achieve or the problem or project you're working on, but equally the influence. So they might have a super high interest in what we need to get done. Think high interest to the people who own the categories or own the cost centers of the goods that you are managing. So these are people you want to keep completely informed, and equally the greater influence they have on the organization, the people you want to manage most thoroughly. If they have a low level of interest and you have a low level of interest in them, then they regular minimal contact. They might not have a lot of sway. They might be someone within a cost centre who's working at a slightly less senior position and simply will go along with what's being told and what's agreed above them. They might not have that strategic sway on an organisation, so need to be less informed and allow their management to do so. Influence stakeholders. They might have low interest in what you were trying to achieve, but they might have high influence on the organization. They are people that you want to anticipate and meet their needs ahead of time, because they might not have an interest in what you're trying to achieve, but if you don't keep them up to date, they might have a massive impact on what you're trying to deliver. So how do we achieve this, and how do we realize these relationship benefits? When we're doing procurement requisitions, when we're looking at procuring something new, whether that be a product or service, or whether we're looking at implementing a project from a strategic spend review, a fantastic way to build relationship management or buy-in from key stakeholders is cross-functional teams. So you create teams with members from various departments who are included in the requirement or will be the people who are the end users of the goods or services you're procuring to work on procurement and supply chain projects. These can be often called IPTs or integrated product or project teams. These are key stakeholders that can help you decide what you need to buy, list key requirements, or model the services they need the most. They are the people who are telling you what they need, what the business needs. Clear communication channels. Ensure all departments understand and align with procurement strategies and supply chain goals. We need to make sure people understand the benefits of what we're trying to do, and equally how they can help to make our lives easier, but also what we can do for them. Shared objectives. Align department goals top down from the value stream. What does this mean? Well, every business has a value stream or value chain of what they do for their customer. It's essentially the series of activities that they complete to create value for the customer as what they sell as their service or product. So let's ensure as procurement we are serving the areas of the business that drive the most value and procuring things aligned to that. As an example, we might be a software business that sells security software. One really important element of this is our end customers require lots of support, and as part of our product we offer the software but also a chat support. Now, if the chat service provider that we've decided to use is not serving the needs of the business correctly, then we're reducing the value we're offering to our customers. So what might that look like? A shared objective would be understanding that these key stakeholders need X, Y, or Z features in this software to provide the support they need to do. So we will include them as much as possible and understand what their key value drivers are. So when we as procurement go out to procure and benchmark and understand potential suppliers and options, that these key things are there, and we include them as part of that process of measuring these suppliers and deciding if they're adequate or right for the organisation. Understanding across departments, process flows and learning sessions. There is nothing more effective than getting joint departments together and doing presentations on what each other's trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, and how these departments interact. Having a mutual understanding of crossovers of value and activity is incredibly important. Building trust and understanding with internal stakeholders. Trust within the organisation is key for efficient procurement and supply chain operations. So, transparent processes. Make procurement processes visible to other departments to build trust and reduce misunderstandings. Make them totally aware of why you do things and why you ask certain questions and why the processes and procedures are the way they are in order to best service their needs. Look at internal stakeholders very much like the business should look at their customers. Look at who you're trying to serve and how it's best to serve them. You equally need to look at it like you have a guide in hand, because ultimately you are making them aware of strategic buy-in decisions and reasons that's outside of what their core competency and scope is. They simply just want the service or product delivered. Your job is to make them get there in the most cost-efficient, value-maximising way, but also the way that serves their needs. They understand what their needs are, you understand what the best process should be. Regular updates. Keep internal stakeholders informed about procurement activities, including potential risks and mitigation strategies. Make them aware of potential problems you might be facing. They might have the solutions for you. Keep them up to date with how projects are going. Are we looking at new software or products for those people? Let them be part of the process. Understanding. Map the value chain and work stream. Understand the handoff tasks and what's needed. Ultimately speaking, the more someone understands the value and benefit to a task that they are required to put input into, the greater buy-in they will have and the easier they will be to work with. So ensure that you understand for this necessary project to be delivered, what steps and stages is required from them, what input they need to give and why they need to give it. Mapping this loosely out in a value chain or project workstream will make huge benefit here. It could be as simple as that we need to change some machines in production. What machines do we need and how does this best service the business? Getting these people involved who work on those machines on a day-to-day basis and understanding their requirements will help. But also, it can be that when we're working with suppliers, we might need their help in there to understand and ask some questions that we might not have the core understanding of ourselves. So including them as part of that project stream as the end user will make them feel more excited and more bought in to the end delivery of that service or product. And put simply, mutual respect. Value the contributions of other departments and incorporate their feedback into procurement strategies. Treat them as the end customer. Your job is to service them at the end of the day. If they are the end user internally, they're also an element of being your customer. So in the previous slide and a few other previous slides, we've mentioned value chains and where the business's value lies. Let's have a quick look over Michael Porter's value chain to understand what I mean by this. So we have support activities and we have primary activities. These two activities are essentially the required steps and process flows of different departments' work outputs to ensure we create value that we sell to the customer. So support activities, so is the infrastructure of the firm. So things like human resource, technology development and procurement. These are things and activities that do not directly go into the service or product that we supply the end customer, but equally speaking are required in order to deliver. Primary activities are the step-by-step operations that deliver the product or service. So what we need to understand is where the department lies and how they contribute towards the key value chain of the business. Let me give you an example here. Without procurement, obviously, we'll have none of the physical or non-physical goods that is required to push in through the business. But we can understand that if, for example, we have a operational department, by operations that would be a production department in a manufacturing business, we need to understand that this production flow will affect other key departments around it and where and the goods that we are procuring, what key stakeholders touch these across the value chain of the business. And this is going to look completely different for every single business. This could look completely different in the sense of if you was a technology business, the technology development would actually fit under a primary activity because you could be developing the software, building, maintaining the software, managing the software, marketing and sales, and the after-sale service if you was a software company. So this is completely different for every single organization, and it's good to have a rough understanding of where each department sits along this and what they do as part of the value chain of the business, because it can make them understand how key they are to the activity you are completing, but also what other stakeholders should be involved and may need to be involved in the projects that you might be running or the things you're managing on behalf of these stakeholders. So we're going to look at things from a slightly different perspective, because when we hear the word stakeholders, we often think about internal people affecting our projects or activities. And typically business stakeholders are only looked at people who are involved in the business, whether that be from customer facing or internally. Developing key stakeholders, believe it or not, but suppliers are stakeholders. They have control, impact and leverage on your core value offering, and it's important to look at them like that. If we want to maximize our effectivity as a business, we have to understand that despite the fact we're the customer, and in the world that we live in, the customer is supposed to be always right. Sometimes it's worth not thinking we're right and actually approaching the topic of managing that supplier from how can we get the most value out of them, and that sometimes just doesn't mean telling them exactly what we want and leaving it there. So long-term relationship management for suppliers is crucial to the supply chain, and maintaining those strong relationships ensures resilience and flexibility. Key suppliers or high-strength suppliers or critical supply vendors, for example, key services required for your business to function or parts that would stop your production. So we want to treat them and manage them as external stakeholders because they have direct impact on our business. How do we achieve this? We segment our suppliers. It's important to categorize suppliers based off their strategic importance and tailor engagement accordingly. It could be the spend level you have with them or the supply criticality is the two key ways of working this out. If at current you've got no targeted efforts to maintain and manage and improve supplier relationship management, then I would start with suppliers we have the most spend with and suppliers that are most critical to our business. Conduct audits. Regularly audit suppliers to ensure they meet your quality and compliance standards. By an audit, it simply means understanding how they are functioning as a business, and you have not got to tell them you're auditing them because it makes it very formal and potentially quite pressurized. Try to understand what they do as part of this audit. Visit the site, look at their offering, how do they operate, what potential other offerings do they do, what things could you help them out with, what things can they help you out with. Understand how they operate and what they may have to offer or help you. It's an opportunity to understand them better. And then joint planning sessions. Collaborate with key suppliers on planning for future demand, product launches and risk management. There may be problems you are facing and they can help you mitigate and deal with. Improving supplier relationships and generating value. So how can we incentivize suppliers? And it's really, really simple. In performance-based incentives, create an incentive programs that rewards your suppliers for exceeding performance targets. Reward metrics that drive your KPIs. This could be quality metrics if you're a production company. This could be service metrics if you've got a supplier that's providing you with a support service. The performance-based incentives can quite literally be growth in business, review in business. It could be giving them more business. We need that understanding to understand what drives them as a business and create these incentives. Development programs. Invest in the development of suppliers to improve their capabilities. Long-term contracting, machining and logistics are all examples of opportunities where we can invest in them to better serve their ability to serve us. What can they do to improve your customer-facing value offering? It can be as simple as, if we're trying to operate in a very lean environment, is having them store stock for us at site. For them, that means we're going to be securing that spend with them longer term, but equally it allows us to operate more agile and lean and efficiently. Risk sharing. Establish risk sharing agreements to jointly mitigate risks. Stock levels, raw materials, even on-call service and call-outs. Whether that's a software support supplier, whether that's a service supplier, a cleaning supplier, a security supplier, any supplier. If we can understand the risk to our core competency to our customer, then where does that risk filter down and how can that supplier help to mitigate that risk? And working with them to talk to them can help deal with that. Remember, the cost of you not being able to trade and deliver your core offering as a business is the biggest risk of all. And if there's something a supplier can do to reduce that, that's a huge value offering they're bringing above and beyond cost and quality metrics. So we've talked about relationship building in lots of detail, the benefits, how to achieve it, how it works for suppliers and how it works for internal stakeholders. But now I want to talk a little bit more about communication and how it can improve efficiency for procurement and supply chain. Now, what's important to think about here is this communication is not only with suppliers, but it's also with internal stakeholders, and most importantly, it's with the people you work with as well. These communication points are to be thought about with absolutely everyone you interact with in your work life, even your personal life. So clear communication with suppliers and stakeholders is crucial for minimizing errors, delays and costs. It can reduce waste. Any activity that's not a core driving value activity towards the business is technically waste. Think about waste in terms of errors, time, and standard waste like incorrect packaging. So that packaging would be wasted. Time could be wasted on activity if we miscommunicate. If we make an error due to miscommunication, that's wasted the time of the initial attempt. And then equally we have standard wastes, like we say, packaging, like goods, like materials, that we didn't communicate exactly what we needed correctly to start. First off, how do we start? Clarity and specifications. Clearly define product and service specifications to prevent misunderstandings. Robust request for quotation or request for pricing process starts with a requirements analysis. And what do we mean by this? We need to ensure that we clearly understand what the business needs and what the requirements are in terms of this fulfillment. What are we buying? Does it address the need of the business? Ask that question every single time. Agree update schedule and method. Provide regular updates on orders, forecasts and changes. Feedback loops. Implement feedback loops to ensure communication is effective and issues are quickly resolved. Pre-agree how to manage confirmations, feedback, and how communication should happen. Make sure these boundaries and these ways in which you're working are clearly set out from the beginning. Understand how it impacts other stakeholders and make people aware of how you are going to work with them. So I'm totally aware that when I first had this sort of training and talked about how we communicate with adults as adults, it can seem a little bit patronizing. So I'd ask you to take the next couple of points with a completely open mind and really think about them, and think about, could you actually actively use some of these tactics or points in your day-to-day life to improve communication? And I'd hazard a guess the answer will be yes for every single one of them. So adopt communication strategies that enhance procurement and supply chain efficiency. Ultimately, make your life easier, make your job easier, and make you more effective at what you're trying to achieve. Active listening. Take supplier and stakeholder feedback seriously and respond promptly. What we want to be doing when we're actively listening is thinking about what they're saying and playing it back to our brains as they're saying it live with no distractions, and making sure that they are clearly understood. Understanding from their perspective makes sure that that message gets through to your head in the way that they intended for you to receive it. Remember, communication is a lot about what we say rather than what we receive. Always think about what that person is trying to say from their perspective, and you will be closer to the message that they are trying to communicate. Equally, when you are communicating, understand how your message is being received by them and try and deliver the information to them in a way that they understand. Your job in communicating is to make sure your message is understood by them, not said in the way that you feel like it should be said. Concise communication. Be clear and concise. Avoid unnecessary jargon and think before you speak and type. What is this person's language? What do they understand? And what's the message I'm trying to communicate? And try as best as you can to put it to them in the language that they understand. Cultural sensitivity. Tailor communication to respect the cultural norms and international suppliers and partners. Be very, very aware that when dealing with international suppliers and equally in multinational organizations, that there's going to be different cultural norms and cultural sensitivities. Some areas of the world talk very blunt and direct and are far less warm when it comes to communication over email. But when you speak to them in real life, they're very kind and friendly. Equally speaking, is understanding that certain words, terms, phrases, or ways of speaking can be deemed as non-acceptable in different areas of the world. So be very aware of the cultural ethnic background of the person you're speaking to. My favourite method of maximising the effectivity of communication is what I call the supplier shoes method. Putting yourself in the shoes of the person that you are communicating with. During all phases of quotations, expediting, sending emails, meetings or communication, first put yourself in the supplier's shoes and understand their perspective. First off, what language do they use? Where are they from? What do they understand? What is their day-to-day job to your best understanding? Then, think about what you need and how, if you were them, how best to communicate it. What do you need from this person? And how will they best receive the communication to clearly understand what you need? Equally, a fantastically effective way of making sure the message that you want is being delivered is to ask them to repeat it back to you. Ask them to tell you what you need, and then you will know if they fully understand that requirement. Obviously, making sure this is written down in terms of email or contract format formalizes this process, but on a day-to-day basis, get better at understanding other people and how you can deliver your message best to them. Ultimately, your job in communication is to make sure they understand what you need, not say what you want to say. So, we've got to the stage in this learning and training where we've covered lots of different elements, and the point of this presentation is to bring you awareness to key areas that you could be driving more value for yourself and for the business. But let's put this into a simple flow to think about many of the aspects and points that we've covered. So creating a strategic advantage in supplier relationships. First off, identify the high value suppliers. How? Pick supplier segmentation as a strategy to understand and identify critical suppliers and prioritize them for deeper engagement. Value of spend and criticality to your operation. Focus on the top levels of those first. Tailored engagement. Develop customized engagement strategies for high value suppliers, including regular meetings and joint projects. Once we've identified who these high value suppliers are, what is the best way that they like to communicate? Are we able to go meet with them in person? Do that. Can we organize regular Zoom meetings? Make sure that's the case. And then on a day-to-day basis, are we understanding these key suppliers? Are we understanding who the people we're speaking to on a day-to-day basis, and we invest in time in building warm relationships with them? Enhance performance. So once we've identified these key suppliers, define clear performance indicators and review them regularly with suppliers. So set clear KPIs. Make sure they understand what they are doing for you and what the core value drivers are for your business. If they can understand what they need to do best for you, they can adequately allocate resources to ensure that their service levels are to what you need. Collaborative improvement. Work with suppliers to identify improvement areas and implement changes. Is there challenges you're facing? Where do you need them to improve? How can you help them help you? Incentivize excellence. Offer incentive suppliers who consistently meet or exceed performance targets. If you've understood them as a supplier and taken the steps we've previously discussed, then you will know what they are wanting to achieve as a business and incentivize aligned to where they are growing and going. And if they're not growing and going with you, once again, alternative suppliers may be best suited for you. Measure and communicate. Create KPI-driven metrics. Regularly internally review and keep on top of these. Be constantly aware if these suppliers are services and the needs that you've communicated and agreed upon. Communicate. Once again, QBRs, reviews, daily, weekly calls, Zoom, email. Talk personally with key stakeholders. Identify the people that you need to speak with the most on the things you need to speak most about. Create a structure around that and do it in a way that allows for the best relationship building and communication. Formalize this communication. They understand and you understand, and that mutual understanding reduces confusion. Continuously improve. Use the metrics, the communication, the forward planning to constantly review, update stakeholders, and find opportunities for improvement. If you constantly reevaluate in this cycle and process flow, we're always going to be looking at opportunities to grow and move together and improve our service and value offering with our suppliers. Before you go, I'm sure you've seen this SWOT analysis matrix before. What I'm going to ask you to do is review the notes you made throughout this presentation. Think about everything and ask yourself, where can I apply what I've learned? Where is the low-hanging fruit? And what problems and opportunities do I see? What things can we be doing better as an organisation? What things can I be doing better as an organisation? And apply the SWOT analysis matrix. This is often an underutilised and undervalued tool for extreme value. Think about it this way. Where can I apply what I have learned? If you are working in a business currently and you understand that you are working day-to-day basis on a supplier who's delivering goods to you, but you don't even know their second name, you don't know anything about them, then there's an opportunity there to understand, should I be building a better relationship with them? And put a SWOT analysis on it. Is it worth speaking to them once a week for 15 minutes on a phone to understand how they can best serve you and you best can serve them? What's the strength of that? What's the strength of that idea? The strength is going to be improving supplier relationships and learning more. Where's the opportunities? Multitude of opportunities: improved service, improved quality, improved costing. What's the weaknesses? There's arguably nothing really. What's the threat? Lost time. Very simple, quick way of working it out. There seems to be far more strength and opportunity than there does weakness and threat. Once again, where can I apply what I have learned? And where's the low-hanging fruit? Where's the quick wins and the ideas that you can present to your management, to your internal stakeholders, to people that you work with on a day-to-day basis to make you look good, but also benefit the organisation? And what problems and opportunities do you see? Thank you very much for getting us through all this. I know it's a lot of information. If you've got any questions, jump straight back into the group, ask the questions, and please discuss with people. Everyone's going to be on a different journey in regards to their world of procurement and their careers, but it's important to discuss and share ideas and opportunities. Thanks again. I'll see you on the next training.